Hi guys, so I'm back from my booktube break and I'm back doing one of the videos I enjoy filming the most and watching other people do the most, and that is talking about the last reading year and talking about the upcoming reading year. So firstly, before I roll into all the exciting numbers and challenges and things, I want to say two things. I hope you guys have had a lovely holidays, whether you celebrate Christmas or not. I hope you've been having a really nice time and you're excited for the new year and the sort of fresh start that it brings. And secondly, I just wanted to say, I know I've been gone for a little while. I know I haven't done a November and a December reading wrap up. I'm not going to. I'm sort of just looking forward now rather than trying to look back, and hoping, I'll discuss more in this video, to do some different things with my channel that maybe won't be as strict as monthly wrap ups and things like that. So I'm trying to start as I mean to go on and not to beat myself up about missing wrap-ups about things I'm not really desperate to talk about. So anyway, moving on to the interesting stuff. Now, one thing I need to highlight is I used Sophie's reading spreadsheet in 2017 and I'm going to use her reading spreadsheet in 2018. I'm going to link both the videos down below, the 2017 video and the 2018 video. So if you haven't heard of Sophie's reading spreadsheet, you can go check it out. Her channel's Portal in the Pages, phenomenal channel, so definitely you should be subscribed if you're not already. And I loved it. I don't have the patience to make things like that myself, but I very much appreciate the fact that Sophie has and that she's made it available, and I really enjoyed filling it in 2017. The 2018 one is, oh my god, like phenomenal. And I really love the 2017 one. The 2018 one has all these pretty doodles, and it has a TBR page, which I will get into in a little bit, but it's so exciting. So all this stuff I'm discussing with you now has been aided by Sophie's spreadsheet, so I just wanted to say thank you so much, Sophie. And if you haven't heard of it and you think that sounds interesting to you, then do go check out the videos that I've linked down below. One more thing is that this will probably be a longer video. I am trying to move away from doing really long videos all the time. When videos tend to be more chatty and informal, they tend to be a bit longer. And I know lots of people say they enjoy that, but I don't want to become one of those people who always uploads 20-minute long videos, because I don't know, it just aggravates me as a content creator. It doesn't aggravate me as a viewer, but for some reason it does the other way around. So anyway, this will probably be a longer video, but hopefully the upcoming videos won't be as long as this one. That's all the preamble. So firstly, I just want to do an overview of my year and then get into the nitty-gritty stuff that I'm particularly interested in. So I'm no good at inserting spreadsheets and stuff, so this is literally me with a notebook with stuff I've scrawled down and stolen from underneath Albus because he was sleeping on it. So the sort of overarching stuff I want to talk about is I read 113 books in 2017, and I am filming this the day before the year ends, but I've input the 2 books I'm currently reading that I think I'm going to finish. So officially I've only read 111 books, but by the time the year ends it will be 113. And I've already put the star ratings in for the books I'm currently reading. I'm really close to the end. I'm pretty confident of the ratings I'm going to give them. So my average star rating for the year has been 3.2 stars, which I think as a reading average is quite low. I'd be more confident with it being over 3.5, something like 3.6 I'd be happy with. I'm not asking for like 4 stars as my average rating, but 3.2 seems particularly sad. So I gave 8 books 1 star, 16 books 2 stars, 48 books 3 stars, 33 books 4 stars, and only 8 books 5 stars. And of those 8 5-star books, 3 of them were rereads. So I only actually read 5 new to me books that I gave 5 stars. Now I know in a previous video quite recently I discussed about not being sure about star ratings. I think in videos like this they're useful because they just give you a really quick overview. In general, it hasn't been a great reading year. I've discussed this in previous videos, and looking at these numbers highlighted it and made me realise that I definitely wasn't imagining it. So yeah, there is that. And then just a few things I thought were quite interesting about the year is I've only read 14 non-fiction books. I will be filming my favourite books of the year very, very soon, and I'm pretty sure I know what's going to go in that favourites video, and 3 of those books are non-fiction. So it seems that whilst I only read 14 non-fiction, I've chosen 3 of them to be my favourites, which makes me realised that I really should read more non-fiction. I put 2 non-fiction books in my best of list in 2016 and I read very little non-fiction, and it just seems that I really enjoy it and just need to get used to reading it more. So I'm hoping that can be something I will do in 2018. Something else which I was sort of aware was happening, and I'm just really frustrated with myself about it, is that of the 113 books I read, only 10 of them were short story collections. And if I went back to like 2015, I read so many short story collections that year, and I was so happy with it and enjoying it so much, and I was sure that I'd carry on doing that, and just gradually over the years it's dwindled. So I really want to try and get back to my love of short story collections, and I think I've been fairly unfortunate in the ones I've read this year. I haven't read many that I've really enjoyed, so it hasn't spurred me on to pick up more, but I'm sort of on a quest now to find some new short story collections I love, and hoping that I can do that in 2018. What else did I want to say? So something else I mentioned that I was pretty sure was the case when I did my 2 recent videos is that I knew lots of the books I read were new releases. It turns out that 44% of the books I read in 2017 were published in 2017. So I think that certainly has a factor in, you know, the enjoyment, and I haven't bothered to sort of correlate it, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of the lower ratings would be from that 44%. So yeah, I definitely want to expand that. And then even more sort of shockingly to me, only 5% of the books I read, and that was actually around about 5 books, were published pre-year 2000. So 95% of the books I read have been published in the last 17 years, which is just quite bizarre, seeing as quite a few of my favourite books of all time were published pre-2000, but yet I've not really been giving myself the opportunity to find those new gems or old gems. So yeah, I really want to try and rectify that. So I tend not to give myself hard and fast rules. My goals video last year I sort of spoke about the fact that I love making lists and guidelines, I don't love following them. So last year I tried to be pretty loose with my goals, and of those things I just mentioned, they're more things I'm aware of. I'd like to read more non-fiction, I'd like to read more short story collections, and I'd like to read more books published pre-2000, but I'm not setting numbers for that, I'm not setting rules. It's just more, that's how I'm feeling as a reader at the moment, and I think it will happen quite naturally without me having to sort of force myself and set actual targets. So there's that. So I'm aware that I was speaking super fast throughout that section. Apologies, I hope you can understand all of that. I get excited when I do these videos, and I'm also aware they're going to be long, so I speed up, which is probably really annoying to watch. So, trusty notepad again, and I have so much stuff written here that I'm really, I was like a massive geek just working all this out and telling Johnny the numbers. He literally didn't care, but I care, so I'm going to tell you guys and hope that you do as well. So in 2015 I read 153 books, and that totalled around 47,000 pages. In 2016 that dropped to 133 books, which totalled around 37,000 pages. So in the sort of 2017 reading plans video I did earlier this year, I gave myself an incredibly lofty goal, which I pretty much decided whilst editing the video, to have an aim to read 200 books with a target of 50,000 pages. Did it happen? No, it didn't. So as I said, I only read 113 books. Only, I don't mean only as in that's not a lot, I mean compared to my ridiculous goal of 200. And my page count dropped again down to 33,000 pages. So each year it's just gone down and down, and some of that's you know, relative to what's going on in my personal life and also in the greater world. Like, I know lots of people have been saying this year that lots of awful things have been going on that certainly affects day-to-day living and like your like state of stuff going on in your head, and then how you can sort of enjoy reading. And so I don't necessarily think it's that I have stopped wanting to read as much, or sort of stopped enjoying the amount I was reading in previous years. It's just that I, for personal and sort of bigger scope reasons, haven't reached for books as much, and I've certainly felt the loss of that. So I really want to try and get back to the wonder that was 2015, because I loved the amount I read that year and I loved the amount of amazing books I got through. So that's something I really want to try and get back. So my targets this year, sort of the big things I'm focusing on, are not anything to do with really the amount of books I read. I want that to be a natural thing. So rather than say, right, your aim is to read 200 books, my aim is to read more and hopefully find the passion of wanting to get home and just, like, it feels like it's been a really long time since I got home from work and wanted to have my dinner really quickly so I could just spend the next 4 hours reading, and that used to be a normality for me. And it's become that I just read for 40 minutes here and 40 minutes there, and just, yeah, just sort of squeeze my reading in rather than sort of indulging myself in it. So for me that's more of a hope rather than a sort of number driven target. It's more that I want to find that love again rather than you know, a numerical value to it. So the thing that I am being a lot more strict on is the amount of books I own I haven't read. This is where it gets very mathsy. When I say very mathsy, it's literally pluses and minuses, but I mean that it's a bit numbery, so bear with me. So at the start of this year, I owned 340 books that I hadn't read. That was the highest amount of books I'd ever owned that I hadn't read, and really it just grown, you know, from about 20 books when I started the channel to 4 years later having 340 books I owned and hadn't read. And a lot of the reason it jumped so drastically in 2016 is because I started receiving review copies, and so it just became so much easier for my TBR to just you know, explode. So 340 books sat on my shelves, I dropped my pen, at the start of this year. So in the spreadsheet that Sophie provided, one of the things you could input is the categories of the books you read. By categories I mean that you could say where they came from on your shelves. So I split my categories into things like pre-2017 books owned, and I split them into things like books received in 2017 for review or purchased myself or as gifts, and then also things like rereads, audiobooks and library books. And I only read 23 books of the 340 that I owned prior to 2017 starting. That's appalling. So when I looked at my bookshelf at the start of this year and thought, oh my god, I'm so excited about all these books, this is amazing, I only read 23 of those titles, and other than that, the other 90 books I read this year were not books that I'd owned prior to this year. I can tell you what they were. So I hauled this year, and like I said, that's books that I've purchased, books that I've been gifted, and books that I've been sent for review. The majority of those will have been books I was sent for review. There's been 148 new books coming to my home that I decided to keep. You know, if those books came in that I didn't request, then I gave away to charity instantly. I haven't counted those. So 148 books that I hauled, showed you guys, put on my shelves. Out of those 148 books that I hauled, I read 47 of them. So as you can tell by that number, I tend to reach for newer books way more. You know, out of 340, only reading 23 compared to reading 47 out of 148. I think that new book buzz really affects my reading. So that certainly swayed my reading to being 2017 titles. And then the other 43 books are library books, audiobooks and rereads. A lot of those will have probably been audiobooks, I would have thought. So yeah, there's a bit of, so those ones weren't books that were actually sort of physically on my shelves needing to be read. So the interesting thing about this, and this is where it gets particularly intriguing to me, is that with those numbers, if you work out that I had 340 books, of which I read 23 of those titles, that should leave me with 317 books on my shelves that I owned prior to 2017 starting. Then I hauled 148, which takes us up to 465 books, but I read 47 of those, so that takes us down to 418. So that should mean that currently I own 418 unread books. However, I don't. I only own 208. When I say only, I don't mean that's a small number, but compared to 418, it is. So that means that 210 books have somehow disappeared. How is that? That is because I unhaul books and I'd never show you guys. I don't find unhaul videos particularly, they're not my favourite videos to watch, and therefore they're not my favourite videos to film. And so I unhaul a lot and don't really talk to you guys about it. Now, a lot of those books will have been ones I tried and then DNF'd, possibly maybe 30 of them, and the rest were just ones I unhauled. I had 3 massive unhauls this year. One of them was only about 4 weeks ago and I got rid of about 60 books in that sitting. And that was the hardest one to do. And the first one's the easiest because you sit and you unhaul and you're really cutting books that maybe, you know, quite a few years ago I'd buy a lot of books from charity shops and there weren't even ones I was particularly interested in. I just thought they're really cheap and I may as well. So they're easy to cut. Then you get to the point where there's books you read the first chapter and you read a little bit and you didn't really like it, but you put it back just in case. Or you bought a few years ago before your reading taste changed. They were the second set for me, which I then cut probably in the summer. And then about 4 weeks ago, loads of people in those discussion videos I recently did recommended Books and Lala's channel to me, so thank you for that, because I watched her closet unhaul videos, which I really enjoyed. And then I came across a couple of other videos. Harriet from Harriet Rose is doing a really interesting TBR based sort of challenge for 2018. I'll link that video down below, and I also watched some fantastic videos by Drinking by My Shelf, which I'll link down below as well, which really inspired me. So I sat and culled my bookshelves massively, and they were the harder books to get rid of because they were books that I'd really thought I would love, and then come to realise that I was either not interested in them anymore after 4 years of owning them, or had tried them and really wanted to love them but just didn't, and put them back on the shelves in the hope that I would, and just decided, with the amount of books I have, am I ever going to reach for this title? And if the answer feels like no, then it probably is. If a book sat there for 3 years and I've never even felt at all like reaching for that book, then it shouldn't be there, in my mind. So I have unhauled 210 books this year. I didn't think it was that many. I thought it was probably around 100, but yeah, a lot. So I have 208 books left. So here's where my goals do get strict, but I'm really excited about this. So my plan is to read 9 books a month from those 208 books. So each month I want to reduce my TBR of pre-2018 books by 9. Now, when I say reduce my TBR, I don't necessarily mean I have to have read and completed 9 books I own prior to 2018. I just mean they have to be off my shelves. So I may DNF them and decide they're not for me and unhaul them, or I might get to the end of the month and realise, shit, I've only read 8, that's 1 more book I need to get rid of, and I'm going to have to go through my shelves and cull them. So I'm hoping that won't happen too often. I DNF quite a lot, so I think I should get to 9 quite easily with the amount I read and the amount I DNF. So that is my plan for that. 9 times 12 takes us down to 100 books, so it means that by the end of 2018, if I haven't hauled any books, then I'll be at 100 books. Okay, so we know I'm going to haul books. There's no way I'm going to go for a year without hauling books. It's not going to happen. So in order to avoid the books I haul making this number way bigger than it should be, I have a couple of rules about book hauls. Number 1 is that any books I haul, I'm going to put a post-note on them the day they arrive in the house with the date of the day they arrived, and I then have 6 weeks to finish that title. And if I haven't, it's got to go, because I realised with all these books I've owned for this length of time, that I'm way more excited about a book in that initial 6-week period, way more likely to read it. And then for whatever reason, another new book comes in, the buzz fades and I move on. So I want to retain that 6 weeks excitement, and also that will force me to not haul as much, because if I haul 10 books, I'll be like, oh no, I've got to read my 9 from my shelves in the next month, and I've also got to read these 10 within the next 6 weeks. That's not possible, and therefore I shouldn't haul as much. So that's how that's going to work. And then also, I'm not going to film book hauls anymore. In the last couple of months, but particularly the last few weeks since I've not been filming, I've realised that I don't particularly enjoy watching book hauls anymore. I used to love them. They've always been known as being the most popular videos on BookTube, and for whatever reason I'm just not as into them anymore. I'd way rather watch someone do a monthly wrap-up or reviews. I really enjoy hearing people talk about a book they've read and what they thought of it, whether it's positive or negative. I want to hear people's thoughts. And I think part of me enjoying the hauls less comes with knowing more about what books are out there, so I'm less likely to be surprised when I see book hauls by the books that are there. So because I don't enjoy watching hauls as much, it feels sort of disingenuous to upload them. I do have one more book haul to go up before the end of the year, just because I wanted to sort of round off the year of all the ridiculous hauls, but there's not very many books at all, because I didn't ask for books for Christmas. There's 5 or 6 to show you, so that will just make you guys aware of the books I have sitting on my current TBR. But other than that, I'm going to stop doing book hauls. I'm going to start doing something instead I've decided to call, very originally, Hauled, Read, Reviewed. So what that means is I'm not going to film a book haul, but I'm going to put the post-it note on the book with the sort of 6-week deadline, and then at the end of the 6 weeks deadline I will do a video, probably with more than one book in it, called Hauled, Read, Reviewed, in which you will see the book that I hauled 6 weeks ago, read, and then I'm now reviewing. And I'm hoping that will mean that you guys will still get to see the books that are coming into my house, but you're also going to immediately hear my thoughts about them rather than having to wait years. So that is my plan for that. And then sort of the last thing that I'd like to do is do a quarterly update on all the TBR related stuff, because I realise that if I don't do these quarterly updates I completely forget what my goals are, and I really like watching updates from people on their TBR and sort of challenges, and equally I enjoy filming them. So I'm going to try and do quarterly updates on the reducing my TBR and also the hauled books, and if I'm reading them in time. So yeah, this has been a really long video and probably a bit confusing. I will link down below videos that have inspired me, and also I'll link down below a list of my plans for the TBR challenge that I'm doing, because I'm aware it's difficult to follow when someone's just talking at you, so that if any of you want to use those guidelines or tweak them for yourselves, feel free. I'd love to see or hear if any of you are planning to do something similar. So yeah, I'll put them down below so you can have a little read of how I'm doing them as well. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I will be back very soon, as I said, with a small book haul, and then also with my favourite books of the year. So yeah, I'll see you in the next video. It's good to be back, and thanks for watching. Bye!